Hi, I'm Jan Doyle. Welcome back to the show. We're continuing our conversation with Cindy, and she's an outstanding photographer, and I am really pleased that she's here. Let's just get started. You told me during the break that you have a blog. Tell me a little bit about that.
That's right. I majored in writing in college, Merrimack College in Andover, Mass. So I wanted to create something that went along with my images that sort of explained what I thought the story was. So there's something on my website called The Creative Muse, What's Happening in the Kitchen Studio. And I believe if you creatively wander, you can find your story and you can find yourself through your images. I do a lot of meditation, so a lot of what I write about is very spiritually based, more on an Eastern religion.
You mentioned a woman's name during the break, Perma. What's her full name?
Oh, that's correct. Pema Chodron, who has done a series of books, but one real good one called When Things Fall Apart, also Taking the Leap. And she talks about facing your struggles and facing your imperfections and really letting everything go and just being who you are.
Wow. That's very powerful. And I think this is I think you're not out there just snapping a picture. You're like the total package. It's a spiritual, emotional, creative. It's yourself. It's your whole soul.
That's right. So as photographers, when we go from inspiration to intention, we really weave our own stories through our body of work. We weave our own stories into our images.
I only have one word right now. Wow. That is phenomenal. So let's talk about some of your images. We'll continue with our story. This particular image is absolutely wonderful. It is one of my favorites. I understand your mama doesn't care for it.
You know, my mom's a very traditional person, and I think this is a very strong image
for her. All right, tell us the story about this.
Okay, so this is a parrot tulip, and when I went to the flower store, again, I have a couple that feed my obsession. The gentleman came running to me, and he said, I have something for you. And he came running out with this gorgeous parrot tulip, which is a tulip that just looks like it's on fire. It's absolutely beautiful. So I started to shoot this in my kitchen, what I call the kitchen studio. And I looked through the lens, and although I'm very impressed by the center of this flower, and it's very sharp, this image is very unprocessed, there's that gorgeous abstract petal in the background. Mm-hmm. And that really kind of a feminine, it's kind of the essence of the flower. And it brought my eye right to it. And I showed this out on Facebook again, as I usually do, and I got that kind of response, was that the petal in the background looks like an artistic painting. Looks very impressionistic. So really, this image was twofold. There were two stories. I wanted the center to be sharp as a macro photographer, but it's that gorgeous abstract petal in the background that draws your eye.
You know, the director, Scott, who was behind the scenes doing all this work, he made a comment during the break that it is very artistic. It is very painterly, and so therefore it's just very, very interesting. And I think the hand you just saw, was that Scott putting your hand in there?
Yes, it was.
Okay, good. So so you made YouTube. I'd like to go on to the next image and talk about that particular image. It's very, very, very interesting. And so before we do this though, people you go to the flower shops to get your image, your flowers?
So I have several flower shops on the North Shore of Mass that I frequent. I do find flowers outside in the wild, and I do have people give them to me.
Multifaceted.
Yeah.
So this particular image that's coming up on the screen.
That's correct. So here's a red cyclamen, which is a common flower, a common bloom. It's sold as a plant. I love the color of this flower. This image is called Desire. It's the red that really speaks of love and speaks of desire, and sort of a tumultuous background, because love is an emotion that's not always easy. Desire is an emotion that's not always easy. So it was a tumultuous kind of rough texture that went to the background of this image, but it's a strong image. Red is a strong color.
And it's a combination of desire and it's desire and all the difficulties associated with it.
That's correct. So the desire is definitely expressed through the color, but also through the rough texture.
Now the next image that's coming up is an image that I definitely wanted. I happen to love this image.
So a very unprocessed image for me. This image is only sharpened. As a macro photographer, you often have to get down very low. This was shot at Mount Auburn Cemetery in Cambridge, Mass., very close to where I work. And there were several to choose from. They were sort of all in a kind of a jungly bush, low to the ground.
What kind of flower? What is the name?
It's a wild geranium.
A geranium?
A wild geranium, correct.
Ah.
So as a macro photographer, I wanted the center of this to be sharp. I love the sort of starfish quality that's in the middle. But the story of this image is really the bud that's above the midline. There's so much potential there. You know that something wonderful is coming, possibly something else that's going to bloom.
You know what I'm thinking while you're talking is that bud is saying, look at me, look at me. You know, it's kind of like what a little kid does. Look at me, I'm coming.
Correct.
I'm coming.
There's potential there. There's definitely some growing being done. I use this as an example of intentional photography simply because I shot it very wide open, which means I've blurred the background. I didn't want anything distracting from the story of this image. And there's very little processing. There's only sharpening in this.
This is absolutely gorgeous.
Thank you.
Absolutely. And our next image is an important image because this seems unlike the other images that you've done. It seems to be an anomaly.
Correct, but it's the same in the sense that it's a small story. So as a macro photographer, I'm always looking for the extraordinary and the ordinary. I'm always looking for the smaller story that brings you closer. Just like I ask photographers to come closer to who they are, to come closer to their struggle and their fears. You come closer to the story with a small image like this. This was shot in Vermont on a workshop, and again, New England Photo Workshops on the North Shore. They're wonderful. Shooting in Vermont and shooting some foliage, shooting some covered bridges, which were a much bigger, wider scene. It started to rain. I found this wonderful soggy leaf. I put it against a rock that I thought kind of...
You moved it. You
Correct.
moved that leaf.
I went in search for a small story. I went in search for the leaf. So I placed it on this rock, which I thought had a great texture. It's very complimentary.
It is.
Thank you. Brought out some processing in some Nik Color Effects software. And this became my image that was really Vermont for me.
You know, it almost looks like the tree of life. You know, it's very spiritual, like with the veins or a family tree. That's what I'm kind of seeing in that particular image.
There's certainly some potential energy there. There's definitely a flow to the way that the image is facing, and you definitely get the sense that there's more to the leaf because of the detail in the veins.
Now, do you use this particular image on your cards, too? Is this for you?
I do. I use this image in my cards and also in the presentation that I use to present to camera clubs.
Okay, and what's the name of that presentation again?
Intention to Inspiration, Macro Flowers, The Story of You.
Oh, that really is. I have to see this again. And I'm not 100% sure. Do we have another image to show? And I think this will probably be our last. Oh, isn't this beautiful?
Okay, so often I photograph single flowers, but I was shooting with a really terrific photographer. Her name is Lisa Palonzi on the North Shore.
Oh, I've met her. She's
lovely.
She's been helping you today.
She's lovely.
Yes,
this was in her studio. I was lucky.
She has a studio.
She does, and I was lucky to shoot some irises. I don't usually shoot two flowers together, but these sort of went together. I love the way that they cross because the energy is really crossing there, and it's almost as if they are sharing and pairing up.
Oh,
it's a combined energy.
That's very interesting because there's a thought that people are separate, but there's separate images and then they come together. So that could be almost a symbol of a marriage, or two people who are coming together who are more symbiotic.
Sure. So definitely a collective energy that's definitely kinetic together.
Very, very nice. Mm-hmm. You know, again, you have a blog. What else is that? You have a blog, you have your cards, you have your prints.
So there's galleries on the website that people can look at for examples of my work. The blog is definitely there. I keep it fairly well updated. Again, Creative Muse, what's happening in the kitchen studio. Mm-hmm. There's a few examples of nighttime work there, and some of my newspaper work is there as well. And there's a nice slideshow at the bottom. All of my contact information is there, from my phone number to my email. People are certainly welcome to get in touch with me, and certainly welcome to look around the website.
Well, that is wonderful to be able to have that opportunity. And I wanted to ask you, do you have anything, any specific projects coming up in the future, in the near future?
I have some more Camera Club presentations coming up, and those will be listed on my website.
Oh, that's good to know, because if people want to see the entire program, they can just find out if there's something playing near them.
That's right. I would recommend they call the Camera Club first if there's a contact number, just to let them know so that there is enough space. A lot of times...
Oh, sorry, that's our timer. Excuse me, but
a lot of times Camera Clubs have specific space requirements, so you do want to call if you plan to come to visit. But that would be certainly something that people could do, and certainly visit the blog for updates.
Excellent. Thank you so much for coming. This has been inspirational to myself, to the director, and I know everybody out there is going to enjoy watching and learning about you.
Oh, thank you for having me.